Thousands have been evacuated from the Greek islands of Rhodes and Corfu, which have been engulfed by wildfires for more than a week. Both destinations are extremely popular with visitors, with 1 in 5 people in the region depending on tourism. And it's not just Greece, but several countries across the Mediterranean battling wildfires. Greece is the worst affected, with more than 50 wildfire reports this month. An investigation has been launched into the cause of the blazes, with some local authorities reporting acts of arson. Apart from Greece, rescue efforts are ongoing across the Mediterranean, including in Italy, Spain, Turkiye and Algeria. This month has seen the hottest summer on record, with the region experiencing several heat waves and temperatures touching almost 45 degrees. Climate experts have blamed rising temperatures on the ongoing global climate crisis. And now to further discuss the wildfires ravaging the Mediterranean region, joining me now from Athens is Phoebe Koundouri. She is the co-chair of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network in Greece. And from Swansea, UK, is Stefan Doerr. He is a professor of wildland fire science. Hello and welcome to Straight Talk, and thanks for joining me on the program. So Phoebe, could you walk us through what Southern Europe, especially Greece, has been experiencing in the last 10 days?
Well, we have experiencing forest fires spreading basically all over Greece. And this is not this last few days, but it is something that is recurrent throughout the last year. Since 2007, we have experienced the increased frequency and the increased severity of wild forest fires, which is directly connected to climate change and the resulting destabilization of the climate.
So, Stefan, wildfires are nothing new, but we keep seeing record temperatures being broken. Is this year's wildfire season different than the previous ones?
It's certainly becoming more different as we go through the years, because, for example, in 2021, we had a very bad wildfire season in Greece, as well as the Mediterranean in general. But what we're seeing now is even more extreme conditions. So the heat wave has dried out the vegetation even more. And now we have very strong winds combined with that heat wave that make it extremely dangerous and also very, very difficult to fight those fires.
So what's the main reason behind soaring temperatures and also strong winds?
We have this extreme heat dome at the moment, and the temperatures are higher than we've experienced in the past. And this is nothing unusual in that sense if you look at the climate change predictions. What we're seeing in Greece right now, but also across the Mediterranean, is an increase in the what's called the fire weather index, or basically the days where the fire danger is very, very high, and that's associated with very high temperatures, with lack of precipitation and strong winds. And from climate predictions, we know that these conditions are increasing across the Mediterranean. They've already increased by almost 50% over the last few decades. So the number of days where we have these extreme conditions has already nearly doubled. So the Mediterranean is the area in the world where we see one of the strongest increase in these extreme conditions. And that is clearly related to human-caused climate change.
So I'm going to go into the Mediterranean region separately. But Phoebe, more than 224,000 hectares have already been destroyed across Europe. This year, nearly 4 times the amount recorded back in 2018. So what does that tell us about the worsening situation on the continent?
Well, if you destroy any way you do that, either through forest fires or floods or any other extreme weather event, ecosystems, if ecosystems are being deprived, then you have a serious implication for your production and consumption capacity. Ecosystems are the natural capital. The natural capital of the economy is what you combine with human capital and man-made capital in order to produce. And this is what gives you goods and services on which the welfare of people is based on. So your production and consumption capacity is being deprived. And it's not just being deprived today, But because this ecosystem collapse is irreversible, then you are depriving this generation and all future generation from the most significant capital in your production value chain. And this is extremely serious. And it is extremely serious with regards to our ability to feed ourselves, to produce goods and services on which our prosperity is defined.
So, Stefan, I mean, the situation in overall Europe is deteriorating, but why are Mediterranean ecosystems are more vulnerable to the climate crisis?
Well, there is one particular reason that the Mediterranean is so prone to wildfires, and that is it's the only climate in the world where we actually have essentially good growing conditions in the autumn and in the spring, and in the winter we can have high precipitation, and then we have these extreme summer droughts, and they are now becoming more extreme. Why the Mediterranean is one of those areas that is particularly exposed now to increased temperatures is actually difficult to say. One thing that's partially behind it, that's many scientists agree about this, is essentially the slowing down of the jet stream. That means we have a situation where we have longer periods of either warm, dry conditions or cool and wet conditions. And we've seen this across the globe. For example, in Canada now, as you all know, we had an extreme wildfire year. We have about 4 times the annual average burned already in Canada. And this is also due to a high pressure system that's been sitting in the same place and is simply not moving. And this is clearly something that is affecting areas around the world, but more strongly, it appears, the Mediterranean, as well as some areas in Siberia, as well as North America.
So, Phoebe, I mean, how has the insufficient management of forests added to this catastrophe in the region? And what are the sustainable development solutions for this ongoing climate crisis, like abandoning fossil fuels and going for the green? And is this an easy way?
Well, path management is really one crucial issue that could, if improved, really help minimize the effects of fires. However, we have to have a two-side view of this situation. The first thing is to understand that climate change is the main cause of the increased frequency of forest fires, with increased droughts and reduced humidity and increased temperatures. And in order, and if we understand this, then it is obvious that we have to mitigate. And mitigate means I am reducing my CO2 emissions and other greenhouse gases emissions. This means I use renewable energy, and we have lots, especially from sun in the Mediterranean region, and we should invest in this. It means I invest in circular economy, in nature-based solutions, in digitalization. And this is possible. And on the other hand, I have to adapt, because the existing climate crisis will not go away even if we become climate neutral today. So adaptation means early warning systems, good data that tell us where the forest is, what is in the forest, and also strategic plans for managing the forest throughout the year, which we do not do, and also emergency plans when a fire takes place.
Yes.
We should swiftly respond.
But it seems that we're far away from that level, Stefan, because the World Wildlife Fund has reported that at least 40% of wildfires are started by human activity, and another 26% are criminal. So what do you make of it? And where do people living in these vulnerable regions stand in terms of environmental awareness?
Well, environmental awareness is really critical because, in fact, most fires, at least in the Mediterranean, are started by humans. and many of them are accidental. Arson is often pointed out as the people responsible for those fires, but this is usually the minority. So the population, whether that's tourists, whether that's the local population, really needs to be aware of those extreme conditions where any small spark can ignite an extreme wildfire. So education is really critical here. But we also have to understand that we will always have some form of ignitions in the landscape, whether that's arson, whether it's accident, or in some areas of the Mediterranean, also lightning. So I think it's more important even to invest in land management, as we've just discussed. Reducing the fuel in the landscape, reducing the connectivity of the fuel in the landscape, but also having really good evacuation programs, knowing where the fuels are, good communication. So there's many things we can do. In the past, most of the resources have gone into suppression. We see a helicopter flying right now. That's important, but we can actually make a better progress in terms of reducing the occurrence and impact of fires by prevention rather than acting when the fires have started.
So, Phoebe, could these ongoing fires be a wake-up call for all countries, or will this season be forgotten until it happens again next year?
Well, it has to be a wake-up call, and this is what the SDGs are about. UN Agenda 2030, it's about investing and educating the people and revising the policy framework and finding the finance for implementing sustainability solutions in advance so that prevention is the prevalent way to go about it. It is a systemic, holistic framework of 17 goals that will allow us to manage our land, to manage our seas, to manage our natural resources, and at the same time integrate socioeconomic sustainability in a big transformation of the economy and the society and their interaction with nature in a way that will enable people to live well.
So, Stefan,
so we have to act now.
We have to act now. So, Stefan, what do you say? Is there a need for a collective approach from the Mediterranean countries to fight these wildfires, or has the region already become a hotspot in a climate crisis?
I mean, clearly the region is a hotspot in the climate crisis. There's no doubt about it. But also cooperation across the Mediterranean has been quite strong in the past. And clearly, especially for Greece, since the 2001 disaster, where over 100 people have been killed, there's been much closer cooperation. But that's not to say that we can't do more. There are a lot of regulations that actually make it more difficult to collaborate, and these really need to be changed. So collaboration is really critical, not just within Europe, but across the world. We have Greek firefighters, for example, who went to Canada to support. We have Turkish firefighters to go to Greece and so on. And this is really important here.
All right, Stefan and Phoebe, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.